So right now, what's your biggest struggle that you're dealing with inside your agency? Like what's the biggest brick wall that you're up against?
Number one brick wall, bar none, is getting myself out of the sales process. I am right now the generator of leads and the closer of
So
deals, and I
marketing,
want
so
to be neither
marketing
of
and
those things.
sales, would you say was getting yourself out of marketing and sales?
I'm actually okay with marketing because I want to be doing more content creation, and I like being involved in that right now. I think that that's probably the best use of my time. Sales is actually, I would say, a lower use of my time. So, um, like the business development side where I'm going and making relationships and getting referrals from other agencies, like that's still a good use of my time too. I'm talking more about like managing outbound sales. So, having someone like sending out LinkedIn requests and Facebook messages and things like that to bring inbound sales. Right now, I'm doing a lot of that myself, and that's very time
It
consuming.
is, yeah, and you can't leverage it, right? Like you can only send so many messages physically at a time. And then is it also the sales process, like when the clients come in? Is that one of the things that you're trying to um, replace yourself as well?
Yes, that's actually the most important part. So the actual outbound messaging, I have an assistant doing, and then once they respond and have interest, then from there it's like, okay, Max, take over the sale. That's my job right now.
Got it. So most of your leads are being generated by you reaching out or someone on your behalf reaching out via LinkedIn saying, "Hey, do you want this opportunity? We can build your website, or we notice something about your website," and then they're getting to sales, and that's getting passed to someone else.
Right now, it's me. I'm trying to train someone at the moment to start doing that. He's in the very early stages of his role, but at the moment, that's me that it's being passed to at that point.
Yeah, I know with a lot of entrepreneurs, it's scary, right? I know when I thought I would never get out of sales in my company. Like I was like, nope, I would just have to do this forever. Nobody else can do it. But there's definitely a process and a way to do that. What have you seen working? I know it's very early on, but what are you seeing that's working? What's not working?
Um, so what I'm trying to do, I took a guy out of college because I'm trying to use the same approach that I've done with other things that are really hard, which is like, let's take someone and mentor them for a little bit and turn them into someone that can do this. So I took someone out of college and I taught him, I started by teaching him how to like critique a website because I thought like he needs to have some base knowledge of the industry before he's able no one's going to sell to you unless they think you're the right person to do this project. You have to make them think you're almost like a marketing genius before they're willing to sell to purchase
Yeah.
from you. So I started off on the wrong foot. I think was trying to teach him how to critique websites. Then I backpedaled a bit. I'm like, okay, this guy probably needs a basic foundation of how business works so he can understand what we actually do as a company, which is we solve a business problem. We help companies generate more revenue. And you have to understand what that means to the buyer in order to sell to them. So I recorded a bunch of trainings because I'm trying to make this scalable so I can hire like 4 more reps once this works. I recorded a bunch of trainings on like, here's what a B2B business model looks like, B2C, here's how medical practices make money. Like I recorded like 10 different business models that we're commonly interacting with, just a breakdown of what they are and what's important to them. So then I had him watch all those. And then I recorded a whole series on like how marketing works and what marketing tools there are out there. Like what's SEO, how do search engines work, how does social media work, like all those things. So then we got into that. And now I'm recording a section on what are the individual tools, like what's Zapier, what's a CRM, like what's an ERP, what are all these things that you need to know about on a sales call or you're going to sound like an idiot, those kinds of things. So I'm trying to take that approach while also teaching a little bit of like web critique stuff.
Got it. Yeah. Have you ever read the book Checklist Manifesto?
No.
Oh man, it's so good. Basically, it's a surgeon, and this surgeon comes in and he says, I always thought that what I did as a surgeon could not be duplicated, could not be trained, right? You had to like go to school and then you just had to really have the touch, and there's no way you could put it in a checklist. But then he started to look into other industries, and he started looking into construction, and he started to look into the airline industry, pilots specifically. And what he noticed, he said, the construction industry, he's like, how do they build these big towers and they don't fall over, even though they have all these different contractors, all these different companies coming in, right? Tons of different accountability from different people, and the building stands up still. And he was like, they use checklists, and then specifically they in the construction industry, they have checklist, and then they have communication checklist when something changes. He said, but that's not similar to surgery because we don't have a year to build something, right? Like you do in the construction where you have time to work through things. And that's why a lot of times construction takes longer than everybody anticipates, right? Because there's unforeseen things that they have to account for. But in the world of the pilot, you actually only have like 60 seconds or you're going to die, right? And you and all the people with you. And what he noticed is that the industry or the pilot industry, they have these checklists that are awesome and they're very, very quick and they're straight to the point. And basically it's like, look, if this happens, you go through this 3-point checklist and you have to make sure these 3 things are happening. This is like the most important thing, but it takes into an account that they're expert pilots, right? They know you don't have to like still fly the plane. You know what I mean? There's not a checklist. So what happens is we end up creating complicated checklists. And one thing that I did when I was working with sales, now our situation is a little bit different because I brought in somebody who really understood the dental industry and was like very proficient in being able to speak dental with everybody, but they didn't really understand our product necessarily. So we gave them a simple checklist, right? We said, okay, here's 3 things, 4 things that you have to come out of that sales call with for it to be a success. We also built out like really complicated SOPs, pages and pages of training, probably 30, 40 pages of training, detailed training. But it was like, cool, learn all that. But these are the 3 things that you need to be able to walk away with from that sales call. That was really helpful for me to be able to build training because it was so big, right? It seemed so large. It really helped to boil it down to something simple.
That's really helpful. So build the technical proficiency or at least the background knowledge of the industry and then give very simple, like, so when they're in the moment, when they're flying the plane, they don't need to be thinking back to all that. They just need to be focused on check these boxes. Given all the other information that I've consumed, I can now speak intelligently while accomplishing these 3 goals.
Yeah, and the pilots literally have a book. Like they'll have a big book that when something happens, they know where to flip to in the book. And they know they got about 60 seconds, right? And this guy in this book gives tons of examples. And the reason he does this, it's very sneaky, because doctors have this perspective that he had of like, oh, our industry can't. So he uses the pilot industry to reverse engineer it for the medical industry. And then he went in and implemented all these checklists in the medical industry. It saved all these people's lives. Like, I mean, it's a huge impact, right? And I'm just sitting there going, for me, I'm like, oh, well, I run a marketing agency. If it works for surgeons and for pilots, it for sure will work for us, right? Because we're a little bit closer to construction where we have longer timelines. We don't need to know right that second. We can say, oh, let me get back to you on that. Where in surgery and in the airlines, you can't do that. You don't have that luxury. People will die because of it. So it's very impactful. And then basically what you do is you summarize all the stuff that you just talked about, right? You keep all that. But each step of the sales journey, it's like, okay, here's the 3 things they should be coming away with. Did they? And you literally have them check the box. Like, did these 3 things get delivered to the next stage and the next stage? And in fact, one thing that we're actually working on, we haven't got to it yet, is we have tons of SOPs. We literally have thousands of SOPs. But the problem with SOPs is you can't consume it quickly, right? Like, even if you've read it in the past, you may have wrote the SOP and you're not even 100% sure what it says, right? Because it was a year ago or whatever, where a simple checklist allows somebody like yourself to look at it and go, oh, okay, I know what to do. If all I have to do is deliver these 3 to 6 things, I know exactly what to do. And that we're actually going to go back through and add those to all of our SOPs is like, okay, here's the 4 to 6 things that you have to walk away with from a high level. So that way you don't have to read through the whole SOP again.
That's a really helpful concept. A friend of mine gave me this cool saying, I think he stole it from somewhere too, that process documentation should happen where processes happen. So when I heard that, what we did was we shifted our SOPs from like these long Word documents into checklists. Like, okay, is the client's website already live? Yes. Next step. So I ended up hiring someone whose job it is to be like our internal systems administrator. And what he does is he took our process documents and turned them into checklists. And then he took these checklists and triggered like all these automations. So once we get a sale, our entire process begins and unfolds like almost automatically from there. It's as long as everyone goes and clicks the check marks when they get the notifications in Slack, like it'll happen pretty much automatically.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love, and the more automation you can do, the easier everybody's life is, right? I think that that's so smart. The other thing that I've added to some of our SOPs, and we could do a better job of this, is the SOPs kind of like the letter of the law, right? Like you need to read it. You need to know that this is what we do. And I've added looms to looms or videos, right, that they can watch. And I tell them, hey guys, here's the letter of the law, but let me explain the spirit of the law. Let me explain why we made this SOP. Let me explain why this is so important, especially in sales. I did this a lot because I really I explained to them like, guys, we don't actually sell, we educate. Guys, we don't actually do it this way. We do it this way. Here's what everybody else in the industry is doing. I want to make sure that we do this. And I really explain to them in video, so that way when they go through and they read the SOP, they get what we're trying to do, but they also understand the spirit behind it. And I think adding that checklist to it I think that's like the complete package.
The video is also key. There almost needs to be a standard operating procedure.
We have one of those.
Like you can't, do?
We have an SOP on how to make SOPs. Yeah.
That's what we need. I think you've inspired an action here. That's what I'm going to do. It needs to have a checklist. It needs to have a video, and it needs to have the written version.
Yeah, we have Lauren. We call her a queen of SOPs. Like that's her job inside of SMC is to take processes and break them down and put them back into SOPs. And literally one of the first SOPs she made was how to make an SOP. So yeah, we have that. It was a running joke for a while.